Let me read to you a passage from the 6th chapter of St. Mark's Gospel, verses 53 to 56. It's the Gospel for Monday of the 5th week in Ordinary Time. St. Mark writes, "When Jesus and his disciples had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched him were healed." That's from Mark chapter 6, verses 53 to 56. What does it suggest to us? Well, it suggests the mystery of God being made present. What do I mean? Let me begin this way. One of the great religious minds of the 19th century was John Henry Newman, who lived from 1801 to 1890. He was the author of numerous volumes of religious writings of various kinds and over 30 volumes of correspondence, much of the correspondence having great religious and theological significance. In 1864 he produced his account of the history of his religious opinions, the Apologia Pro Vita Sua. In that book he identifies a key facet of his mind, its propensity to see the world as a veil hiding yet manifesting the unseen beyond. His tendency was to notice anything that indicated the fact and the presence of the supernatural, which is to say, the divine. As a result of this, he responded with alacrity to a philosophy which viewed the material world as a kind of sacrament of an unseen realm, such as the philosophy of Clement of Alexandria in the early church and of Bishop Butler in the 18th century. An attitude such as this runs very counter to what has become typical of the modern mind. The modern mind typically trusts the reality of the natural and visible world and distrusts talk of the supernatural. We of the modern age tend to espouse naturalism. That is to say, we tend to think that nature is all there is, and all basic truths are truths of nature. There's nothing immaterial. This assumption is vastly different from that of mankind in the broad sweep of history, and it is very different from what we see in today's Gospel that I read earlier. In that passage, we read that as soon as Jesus and his disciples got out of the boat, and I quote, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched him were healed. That is to say, the people recognized that in Jesus the divine was being revealed. God was revealing his power and his goodness. Behind the veil of the humanity of Jesus, an invisible mystery was present. The people did not know the extent to which Jesus of Nazareth was a revelation of the unseen God, but it was obvious to them that to some extent he was, as were the great prophets before him. I remember years ago when I was giving a religion class in a state high school, I asked the students before me how they would describe God. One boy said that God was a good spirit. So for him, two features stood out in the idea of God. He was not material, and he was good. If questioned just a little more, he would probably also have said that God is powerful. In our gospel passage that I read earlier, the people knew that God was the great unseen spirit, that he was good, and that he was powerful. He was working in and through Jesus of Nazareth, especially in his healings. Now, the entire life of Jesus of Nazareth is a revelation of the unseen God. As Pope Benedict XVI often repeated, Jesus Christ is the face of God. What was visible in the earthly life of Jesus leads us to the invisible mystery of his divine sonship. Whoever has seen me has seen the Father, he said in John chapter 14 verse 9. Furthermore, even though salvation comes completely from the cross and resurrection, the entire life of Christ is a mystery of redemption. Everything that Jesus did, said and suffered had for its aim the salvation of fallen human beings and the restoration of their vocation as children of God. In this sense, the life of Christ was a mystery, the mystery that has been hidden in God and now revealed to us. And thus it was that St. John could write in the prologue of his Gospel that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We saw his glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John chapter 1 verse 14. The humanity of Jesus Christ, on the one hand veiled, and on the other hand manifested the great God, the mystery of mysteries. And so it is that every gospel scene, whether it be of Christ in his infancy, or Christ in our scene today, or Christ on the cross, or Christ risen, is full of wonder for the Christian. The Gospels are the heart of the inspired Scriptures, for they present the mystery visible before us. We have a far fuller understanding of Jesus Christ than did those of our Gospel scene today, who hurried to him from all directions, seeking from him the blessing of a divine healing. We know who he really is and what he has really done for mankind. We, more than they, have every reason to hurry to him from all directions, seeking the heavenly blessings he has come to give. Let us never lapse into a form of naturalism. It is the snare of the modern times. The world is very real, of course, but far more real is what is behind it, the triune God, brought to man by Jesus Christ our Saviour.